Artificial intelligence is moving into the Arizona desert, not as apps, but as server buildings needing water, power, and land. Arizona is short on all three. The state sells itself as the future of tech, while farms and aquifers face a harder question. Who gets to survive when the desert has to choose between food and the digital cloud? That sounds abstract until it hits a well, a utility bill, or a dry field. In Buckeye, Arizona froze permits for Cipriani, a 9,700 home community, because of a 4.86 million acre-foot deficit. Yet in 2024, developers bought the site for $136 million to build 40 server facilities covering 20 million square feet, legally pumping the same groundwater denied to families. That loophole is the center of the story. In early 2026, Arizona is the epicenter of a resource war, with server campuses requiring millions of gallons of water and gigawatts of power. The Colorado River Basin is facing a Level 1 shortage, and Arizona must forfeit 512,000 acre-feet, or 18% of its annual river allocation. Officials released 1 million acre-feet from Flaming Gorge Reservoir, but slashed Lake Powell releases by 1.48 million acre-feet, cutting Hoover Dam hydropower by 40%. The water crisis becomes a power crisis. One data center can drain as much electricity as 100,000 homes. Farming towns now compete with machines needing power around the clock and water to prevent overheating. So the fight becomes simple. Whose growth gets treated as essential? Arizona has always been built on engineered water. Around 300 BC, the Hohokam dug 500 miles of canals, 30 feet wide and 10 feet deep, supporting 50,000 people at Pueblo Grande. After 1,700 years of farming, they abandoned the valley by 1400 AD because of drought, floods, and toxic salt. In the 1860s, settlers rebuilt on those paths. In December 1867, 17 pioneers formed Swilling Irrigation to dig the Swilling Ditch, harvesting crops by March 1868 near the Arizona State Hospital, and naming the outpost Phoenix. But an 1890s drought slashed flows to 25 cubic feet per second, or 187 gallons, forcing reservoirs. Modern Arizona repeated the same pattern at larger scale. In 1903, landowners formed the Salt River Valley Water Users Association, later SRP. They finished the Theodore Roosevelt Dam in 1911, securing Apache, Canyon, Saguaro, Bartlett, and Horseshoe reservoirs. Agriculture dominated for 70 years, but post-war growth sank water tables. Between 1973 and 1993, the 336-mile Central Arizona Project Canal was built, pumping 1.4 million acre-feet annually from Lake Havasu to Tucson. To secure canal funding, the 1980 Groundwater Management Act created the Arizona Department of Water Resources. It set active areas, including Phoenix, Tucson, Prescott, and Pinal, to reach safe yield by 2025, forcing developers to prove a 100-year supply. Then, the workarounds arrived. In 1993, the state formed the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District, letting builders pump local groundwater by paying a tax to replenish it 40 miles away. Pinal County was left with an 8.1 million acre-foot deficit. In 2025, Senate Bill 1611 let retiring farmers sell water rights. Then came the commercial loophole. Server campuses do not have to prove water security. Tech firms say servers use under 1% of Arizona's water, or 905 million gallons in 2025, compared with farming's 72%. That statewide number hides local stress. Phoenix has 150 data centers, including sites consuming 5 million gallons daily, matching 50,000 residents. Meta's Goodyear site uses 56 million gallons annually, 2% of the town's supply, as regional demand surges 870% to 3 billion. Water-saving tech shifts the burden to the grid. Dry cooling saves local water, but requires massive power. In Tucson, TEP gets 86% of its power from coal and gas, drawing millions of gallons of groundwater for cooling. U.S. developers requested 700 gigawatts of connections in 2025. In Arizona, APS and SRP expect energy needs to triple to 29,000 megawatts. APS projects servers will need 1,500 megawatts of peak demand by 2038, while SRP's server demand jumped 400% in 6 years, swallowing 5% of capacity. Households pay for upgrades. A California utility raised rates 5%, issuing $143 million in bonds for server expansions. SRP requires sites over 20 megawatts to pay 80% of peak costs, while APS charges setup minimums. In May 2027, NV Energy will cut power to Liberty Utilities, serving 49,000 in Lake Tahoe, to feed Google, Apple, and Microsoft servers. Scarcity is also financializing water. Farmers pay $30.32 per acre-foot, while cities pay $512. Imperial and Coachella Valleys pay 0. Other water is 12 or 25 cents. California rates are $343. Arizona's $49. Open market $853. And some units trade at $85,000. Greenstone bought 485 acres in Cibola Valley for $9.8 million, detached the water in 2018, and sold it to Queen Creek for $24 million. That cleared $14 million profit, as fields went dry. It then spent $66 million buying 8,000 acres across La Paz, Pinal, and Yuma, under 15 Delaware companies, to sell water rights. House Bill 2756 stops shifting grid costs to families, though the state exempts servers from sales taxes through 2033. The backlash is becoming local and political. Tucson approved a 5 million gallon daily Amazon site. In Page, the council sold 500 acres near Horseshoe Bend for a $10 billion complex, prompting protests from Navajo neighbors who haul water in trucks to protest. Teyana Begay gathered 405 signatures, while indigenous groups track 37 planned hubs. In Nevada, Paiute resistance forced a 30-day permit freeze in Reno in May 2026. In La Paz County in 2023, a foreign corporation pumped 31,000 acre-feet of groundwater to export alfalfa, drying wells. Attorney General Chris Mays sued, and a judge allowed the lawsuit to proceed in May 2026. Farmers argue crops support food security, while data centers consume resources for intangible digital products. Arizona stands at a watershed. The Colorado River Guidelines expire in December 2026. Utility rates are rising, and groundwater rules still exempt industrial users. The path from Hohokam canals to Wall Street water trades exposes desert limits. Digital wealth requires physical resources. This landscape cannot safely yield. Arizona must admit both tech and farming depend on the same water and power. If the state does not regulate server complexes like housing, it will trade its farming legacy for a cloud that was never weightless.